The Heroes and the Hidden by Kitty Quat on AO3. Episode 23. Chapter 21. But do you got room for one more troubled soul? Izuku pushed himself further into the corner of the abandoned apartment, shivering. Adabi had invited him, with the promise of new clothes, and a safe place to stay just for the night. Izuku had accepted, if only to change out of the ruined and bloodied-soaked clothes he wore. Whose blood was it? Izuku had no cuts that he could feel, and the only energy was a dull pain on the burn of his scalp. That fit okay? Tabi asked, going through boxes of what appeared to be food and water. Izuku nodded in confirmation, even though he was practically swimming in the large hoodie and pants that Tabi had. Izuku pulled his legs up to his chest, tucking the hoodie over them. "Why are you helping me?" he asked, watching Dobby prepare 2 bowls of noodles, using his hands to heat them. A fire quirk was impressive, though they got a bad reputation due to the bastard of the number 2 hero. They were still strong and good hero quirks, not like Izuku's curse. Dobby scoffed, handing him a bowl and disposable chopsticks. "Let's just say, I see a little of myself in you, kid. Though you're younger than I was when I ventured off into the cold, uncaring world alone." He smirked as he exaggerated, sitting on the floor near Izuku. "Where were you doing out there? And whose blood was all over your clothes?" He slurps his noodles, watching Izuku closely. Izuku tries to hide further in the large hoodie. "I don't know. I was at school one second, and the next I was in an alley." He confesses. He pulls his feet onto the hoodie, covering his bare toes. "I don't know whose blood it was." Dobby sighs, kicking his feet out. "Damn, I thought you might have a good story. Guess not." He slurps more of his noodles, and the warehouse falls into a steady silence. It's not unwelcoming to Izuku, but it's a bit unnerving as the older teen keeps watching him from the corner of his eye. After a few minutes pass, Dobby pushes himself to his feet, tossing out the trash in a bin. "Well, kid, you could stay here 1 day only, just until you get some sleep that you didn't get last night," he remarks, throwing pillows at Izuku from a pile. Izuku barely manages to hit them out of the way, before he spills his noodles. "I don't do kids." Izuku nods, placing his barely touched noodles down to set up a makeshift bed. He punches it into one corner, almost making a bird's nest, before he grabs his noodles and walks to the trash, throwing away the full cup. Dobby raises an eyebrow at him but ignores him as he walks across the apartment, double-checking the many locks that cover the door. The windows are boarded up as well, though a little light sleeps through the cracks. It's been a day since whatever had happened. "Okay, kid," Dobby says, stretching and running a hand through his hair. "Try to get some sleep before I kick you out." Izuku was back in the void. It was silent, save for his breaths, and his heart that sounded like it would burst from his chest. The darkness was all-encompassing, going on for miles. He couldn't speak for what felt like days. Every sound he made, taken by the void. "I don't want to be here." Izuku tries again, this time, hearing his voice fade to nothing. The darkness chuckles at him, slowly forming into a large, formless shape. It moved and fluctuated as it stepped its color from the black room. The room was now blinding white, and a black mark on it, like a bad thought. "Do you not like my form?" The form said, moving with each syllable it said. It had bright green eyes like him, pupil slits like Toga's. "Who are you?" Izuku asked like the night before. The form sighs, moving around him like a shark circling a ship. "You are not that dumb, Izuku." It spits his name like a curse, making him flinch. Izuku shakes his head, trying to step away from the form that seems too close now. The bright green eyes stare into the dark ones, and he hates the look of hunger that fills them. "I don't want to be here," Izuku murmurs again. "Very well," the form says, disappearing. The room fills with black again. Izuku fills with black. He could feel himself choking on thick darkness, trying to get any air that he can. He scratches at his throat, trying to free it up. But he can't move. The darkness, and he could feel himself fading away. Like mother, like son. Dabi shakes the kid, trying to wake him up with no luck. Zuko! Zuko! He repeats over and over with no response. The kid is shaking and sweating so profusely that Dabi doesn't even want to touch him. He keeps reaching for his neck, digging his hands down and scratching away pieces of skin. Izuku won't wake up. He sighs before slapping the kid across the cheek hard. He may have done it to wake the kid up from his nightmare, but he will admit that it felt good. Izuku gasps, sitting up before punching Dabi in the staples of his jaw. He groans, feeling the blood start to seep down from his face. Fucking hell, kid! He murmurs, as well as he can, holding his jaw up. That must have been a hell of a nightmare for that reaction. He stumbles to the sink, turning on the mucky water, washing off his hands and face as best as he can before heading over to his first aid station. Izuku stares at him with horror in the eyes as he slowly starts to move. He clenches his fists, burying them into the pillow he had set up in the nest style. He better not fucking rip them. They were hard enough to find and clean from the streets. Izuku wipes at his eyes, curling his legs into him like a shield. God. He reminds Dabi so much of his older self that it's painful to watch. Dabi sincerely doubted that they had gone through the exact same experience, but this kid had been dragged through hell and back. Dabi grabs the bent staples from his jaw, slowly and painfully pulling them from his flesh, groaning. This was his least favorite part of being on the streets. No healthcare cared about him. He slowly inserted fresh staples into the wound, letting them melt just slightly into his skin. Does it hurt? He hears Izuku ask after a while, staring at him as he dabs up the remaining blood around his scar. He spits into the sink, letting the blood drip down his lower lip before wiping that up as well. He groans, closing the case of new staples and tossing the broken ones. It doesn't exactly feel like heaven, he responded, before flipping his jaw around the staples to show the kid that it didn't have much reaction. I can't feel much of anything on my burns, though. He explains, sighing. Izuku nods, rubbing at his shoulder. Dabi had let him change in peace as he took his bloody clothes and burnt them into nothing but ash. He could imagine the boy had a few scars on his own, however. No one ended up in an alley with that much blood without a few scars. Burns don't feel nice, he murmurs, before rubbing at the bald and blistering spot at his head as well. It was a fresh one, though. It didn't have any direct cuts in it, and blood around it. The kid's scalp and hair were a mess, though. Whoever had cut his hair did it horribly. Dabi nodded at the kid's statement, grabbing his burnt ointment and walking to Izuku, sitting beside his nest. Want some ointment for that one? He asks, holding it out to Izuku. Izuku hesitates, before grabbing it and slowly squeezing it into his hand. He sets down the bottle, using one hand to part away hair, and the other to apply the ointment. Dabi can hear his teeth clench, but he doesn't flinch as he applies the cream. You want to talk about your nightmare? Dabi asks, as Izuku finishes up. Izuku stiffens, slowly putting the lid back on the bottle before shaking his head. He puts his head on his knees, trying to hide himself. I just want to sleep without dreams, he says, wiping his arms around his leg as well. Dabi nods, humming. He understands that all too well. Dreams sucked sometimes, even 5 years after he died. Dabi leaned his head against the wall, closing his eyes. I'll wake you if I notice you falling into a nightmare, he offers quietly. He hated kids, but he did love himself, and the kid was a carbon copy of him. It had nothing to do with the kid being Shouta's age. Nothing at all. Thank you, Izuku murmurs, curling up tighter. The room was silent, as they sat there together for over an hour. Dabi didn't mind the quiet. It could get lonely at times by himself, but he enjoyed it. He was going to be better than everyone else, so he didn't need anyone else. He did have to admit that having someone else near him wasn't that bad. He could almost imagine that everything was right in his life, and that the man had never succeeded in creating a replacement. He heard Izuku's breathing even out before the kid fell over, resting his head on Dabi's shoulder. Dabi flinched, but he didn't move the kid off, slowly letting himself relax under the young child's touch. His hair was crusted and coarse on Dabi's chin, but he didn't move, allowing him to sleep. The kid smelled horrible, if he was being honest. The first thing, when the kid woke up, would be to get him cleaned up somewhere before Dabi let him leave. He couldn't have a kid hanging around him when he needed to take down villains in the street every night. But something tugged at his heart as he sat with Izuku, and slowly fell asleep himself. Tomura scratched his neck feverishly, scanning the cameras that he had gained access to. The city needed some better system to keep people out. It hadn't taken Tomura even 5 minutes to find a way in. "I haven't seen this monster anywhere," he murmurs, biting at his lip worriedly. "We should have seen it by now." Kirigiri sighs, wiping down another cup. There was no way that dishes were still dirty between the two of them. "Patience, young Tomura. It will show itself when the time is right." Tomura groaned, scrolling back through the 24-hour of video. He was done waiting. He wanted to leave the bar and find the monster himself. But Master wouldn't like him leaving for something like that. He couldn't be seen until it was time. It was exhausting. He just wanted to stop the itching. He wanted to destroy. "Look!" he shouted, playing the feed. It was a grainy security camera outside of an apartment building. The monster burst out of the apartment, shaking its head as if batting at a fly. Blood covered its muzzle and talons, staining the black fur red. It shook its entire body like a dog, shaking it off before leaping into the air and racing away from the camera's view. Kirigiri sighed, putting a cup away. "Are there any connecting cameras in the direction that it feed?" Tomura scoffed at the interruption of his viewing experience, but looked anyways. Scrolling through feeds, he found only one other feed that showed the monster, but it was barely visible through all the trash and boxes that filled the alley. The camera was trained on the entrance of the small club, but happened to show the edge of the alley somewhere the monster crouched behind a dumpster. Tomura watched fascinated as its bone cracked viciously, contorting its image. The muzzle hung strangely to the side, and the skull seemed to rip in half as it slowly faded from view, hiding by the dumpster. "Fucking dumpster is blocking my view!" Tomura screams, scratching at his neck again. He couldn't have anything nice, could he? The camera fuzzed before devolving into plain static. Fucking old cameras are stupid. Wouldn't even let him see if someone stepped out from behind the dumpster. "Hold on, young Tomura," Kirigiri said, appearing beside him and rewriting the feed till right before it shut off. He paused it quickly, walks towards the television, squinting at the bottom corner of the dumpster. "Here." He points towards bright red shots that Tomura hadn't seen before. "Well, this is very interesting." His master's voice rang out from the box on the wall, making him jump. How long had he been watching? "Tomura, tell me," he says, amusement in his voice. "Do you recognize what those are?" Tomura stands up, walking towards the television by Kirigiri, squinting at the red marks. "Shoes. Quirkless shoes." He mutters quietly. "It seems like you have the lead you need, my student," his master said, before the static cuts out. Okay, alright. I don't know why my mic is sounding like that, but it's annoying the fuck out of me. Okay, chapter 22 is called Can't Replace My Blood. I wonder if Dabi is actually going to take him out. Like, not take him out, like, kick him out. I don't think so. Maybe, who knows. Dabi and Izuku get to know each other. Toshinori needs to end the battle. Tomura finds his... What? No. 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 N-O. No. 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 Why? No. What? No. No. Okay, fine. I'm upsetty spaghetti, okay? Anyways, as always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.